Thanks everyone. So do we have the presentation on there? There's a quick presentation and then we'll go into sort of a fireside chat. There it is. There's me, receding hairline. Lovely. So, how do we tell what's fair? That's really the first question I want to ask, and I want to do something that I haven't actually rehearsed with Harmen, so he doesn't know anything about this. The die is the most basic gambling tool that we have. It's probably the first gambling tool that was ever devised. This is a normal die. What I want you to do is, I want you to throw it, remember the number, but don't show me, and cover it. Have you remembered it? So I'm going to try and guess what number it is, and I'm going to do it just by counting from 1 to 6 and seeing your reaction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6. Yeah. See, was that fair? Shall we? Oh wait, once is a fluke. Once is a fluke. Let's try again. Okay, roll it again. I'm going to look away. Do you remember it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You blinked at 1. Sure. So, was that fair? Was that a trick? Was I cheating? How do you tell? If I can fool someone as smart and experienced as Harmen in a room half full of gaming executives with a simple die, imagine how easily we can all be fooled by technology, by advancing technology. And that's what we're going to very, very quickly dive into. Our industry is changing. We are going from what used to be gray markets, and you all know what I mean. You have a license on your wall that says I can go to country XYZ, and I can take bets from there because the license says it's legal. This model, as we all know probably, and if you don't know, then here's news for you, this model is dying out. Countries are regulating themselves, governments are realizing there's money to be made, and that's a natural progression of our industry. We are going to fair markets, which means we are going from regulating gray markets to regulating the actual products, to make sure that the platform you use, the games you use, the technology that you use with players is actually fair. And this is something you can use globally, and that's where we're really moving. So the lines really become blurred on this one. In the olden days, it used to be you're a sportsbook or a casino or you're both. Now, all these things on the right, and many, many more, they become muddled. You have casinos now where you can bring an NFT to the table that gives you a bonus. You have guys trying desperately to invent the metaverse more or less successfully. And of course you have things like AI. So what is fair? Let's take an example, and this is a real example. I recently spoke to a startup, advised them on this. This is happening right now. Some big guys, can't tell you who it is, but it's an American company. They have developed an AI tool for a sportsbook that predicts what a player is going to bet on using AI, using machine learning analysis. And it will adjust the odds according to what the AI thinks the player will bet on. Now there's 2 possible scenarios in this. Option 1, they show the player worse odds because they know he's a loser and they predict what he's going to bet on. Or option 2, should they show him better odds because they know he's a loser or he's a recreational player, and they show him better odds to keep him there. So which one would you say is fairer? And the more overlying question, how do you regulate that? How do you make sure when we as operators have these tools, we use them fairly? We don't, do things that we shouldn't be doing. So, going to the next one. This one actually is not directly related, but it just made me laugh. This is a serious thing that they're trying to do now. The WWE wrestling, scripted wrestling matches where the outcome is known before are now going to be offered. How do you regulate for that? You know the outcome. This is the principle that has been set in stone, and now suddenly we are going to bet on games that we know the outcome of? This is crazy. So, no products and challenges. Who's going to build the first full AI sportsbook? And by that I mean the sportsbook as we know it, that big interface, that website where you click on football and tennis and golf and you can pick your market and your bet slip. Who's going to put away with it and just give me a ChatGPT window where I type in, I want to bet on Man United now, I don't want graphics interfaces anymore. Who is going to develop the first AI casino? Who is going to develop the first AI slot machine, where instead of creating thousands of slot machines, and you all know we're in an arms race, everyone has hundreds of games, thousands of games on their site. In future, the player goes onto your site, there's a little text window, he types in, I want to play a slot machine with 5 reels, with a nice jackpot, with a jungle theme. You press the button and it creates it for you. Just like you go on Midjourney, just like you go on ChatGPT. Who's going to build that first? And how you regulate for it? And, of course, punters will use AI tools. How do you regulate for that? How many of you have checked your site terms of your websites to forbid players from using AI tools when they play with you? Because they will. They're going to ask ChatGPT to give them a betting strategy. They're going to use much more sophisticated tools to try and outdo you. Of course, AI has a lot of good uses. It was mentioned before, responsible gambling, it's perfect for that. We can predict problem behavior, we can fight it. This is good for us, but we need to be on top of it and we need to regulate for it. And there may well be a point in the very near future where regulators will tell you, hey, you have to have this AI tool to predict problem gambling. Are you ready for that? Of course, all the other stuff, CBDCs, all that's still coming. Are we ready for that? And compliance is the one word that everyone fears more and more. It's inevitable. If there's any department that is growing in any operator, it's compliance. So we need new frameworks for this. We need new rules. We need new regulations. It has to be light touch because this is new tech. You don't want to, strangle it when it's still growing. But it still needs to be strict enough so regulators and everyone can trust you. And we have reached a point now where you have a need to be reputable. And that means as a company, as a gambling company, as a supplier, but primarily as an operator, people need to be able to trust you. And not just players, but governments, your partners. Classic example, if you have a Curacao license and you want to get banking, you need to get a Cyprus subdivision, subsidiary, because you can't get banking. So this is the very quick sales pitch for a certain island in the middle of the Irish Sea that offers you all these wonderful things already. And that can actually already regulate crypto gambling. We can do NFTs, we can do a lot of those things already under one of the 2 frameworks that we have in place and that allow you to grow. But there is a lot that is being worked on right now, and there's a lot coming in the future. And this is where we really see this going. So you do know the Isle of Man, it's business friendly, it's a great place, and ever since Curacao had a bit of a hiccup, we literally have a queue on our door, so everyone loves us, and rightly so, because we're very good. This is me, and let's go into the fireside session, where Harmen will now proceed to tear holes into everything I said.
You called on some interesting issues, and in all honesty, we don't have a lot of people in the audience, or that makes it difficult in order to not immediately deal with your questions. If you have a question, if you have a remark, or you want to just add to the discussion, please do so. The thing that really took me from this discussion is the fact that we going to have right now we're always talking about how gaming can be completely, let's say, fair and honest, for everybody to play, etc. And we talk about a lot of games, for example, that need an RNG, etc. And then you have a lot of games where there is a, let's say, level of skill needed, etc. With AI, based on your discussion, AI becomes effectively the moderator, right? Because it effectively becomes, let's say, the engine that no matter if it is an RNG, it can start predicting, because if the AI is powerful enough, and let's say a game gets, the top prize every, let's say, 3 million spins, theoretically it could predict that. If that spin is, ready to come up or not, versus, for example, the skill factor, where it could, analyze, let's say, somebody's level of expertise within that game.
Yeah, and this really puts the advantage, if you want, in the player's hands at the moment. And I'm not sure many people, well, obviously the programmers among you and those who work in tech, in AI and in game development, they may look at that and go, uh-oh, because this puts the advantage firmly in the player's hands. Or most of the AI tools that we have out there, many of them are open source. They are open to use, or they are affordable to use. So if a player now goes along and throws all the statistical data of all the slots, which is pretty much openly available more or less, into these tools to try and predict, for the first time I would argue, a strategy that might actually work, because a machine is analyzing a machine, then suddenly you may have a player that can be a lot more selective in what slots he plays, what games he plays, with a higher chance of winning, because the AI does all the background. It checks when was this jackpot won, when was this one, how many players on here. And suddenly
I could see it with
smarter.
poker. I could see it with poker, for example, right? A poker game generally lasts, for a period, let's say an hour. You have a lot of different hands. There's quite a bit of information coming through, within that hour, etc. that could be analyzed. I could see it with a poker. It's harder to see it with a slot. I think, with a slot machine, the clear advantage lies with, either the operator, in order to oh my God, this slot is going to hit pretty soon. I don't want to pay out that jackpot. I somehow push the slot to the back end, or I just not make it visible, or somehow that slot I take off.
In slots, I think it's possible. It's very advanced, for sure. In poker, definitely, there's going to be new tools. There already are new tools that let you predict better what's going to happen and how to play it. But especially in sports now, we have there has never been so much computer firepower in the hands of players with very little effort. In the olden days, if you remember it, there used to be a few statistics websites. I used to be a US sports trader, right? So we looked at all these old stat sites, and there were manual databases that maybe you could scrape them, maybe you could do a few things. Now you just ask AI, analyze this team to the nth degree.
I mean, it's already happening within the stock market, right? We know that, for example, Starlink basically came about because of the fact that, Elon Musk supposedly, and again, this is not, all that available information, etc. But there was a deal made with Wall Street, with a number of, hedge funds, etc. That basically said, okay, if you're going to put satellites in space, 32,000, and if we have access first to those 32,000 satellites, we, gain a couple of seconds on the information by the time we want to place, an order or a sell. And that was basically his advantage with regards to getting funding in order to basically get Starlink up and running, etc. When we then, take this back into a situation with the sports books, I can see the syndicates taking a massive advantage.
Yes, absolutely.
To this, right? Because they can use their quantum algorithms, etc., and basically, start figuring out, way before anybody else as to, what it should be. I mean, how can you provide? How can you even teach your traders to deal with that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's two very famous. I'm not going to name the names, but I'm sure you all know them. There's one company in the Isle of Man who employs 170 people just betting on horse races every day. That's all they do. They use a lot of humans. And there's a certain company in London, in Camden, has a little four-legged animal as their logo, that also employ humans to advise them what to bet on. That's going to change. I mean, by now you had proper sports fans who analyzed everything to the nth degree and then told them, hey, bet on this, this, and this to get a higher than average return. Now you just ask the machine. And you just feed it all in there. And suddenly this is going to change. 2023, I think we can all agree, is the year of where AI breaks out into the mainstream, where everyone's excited about it. And that brings a lot of developers in, that brings a lot of interest, that brings prices down.
Oh, it brings money in.
Yeah, and then in the next few years, like these guys that are, told you that are already developing an AI tool for their sportsbook that predicts what a player will bet on. Now you can bet your bottom dollar, there are players out there that will already build tools to combat that, to take the sportsbook. Right. Is that cheating? How do you regulate for a player using an AI tool? Is he cheating that he's now
Of course
smarter?
he is. I mean, that's the same as going to a casino doing card counting. Come on. I mean, we've thrown these people out forever, right?
It's not. Here's the thing, right? Is it cheating if he is simply using AI to better research his selection?
Yeah, that's the same as if I would use a little machine and I would do the card counting automated, etc. You know that casinos won't stand for it, and the same as I think the online gaming business needs to be ready for.
Well, then we need the rules to say that. Otherwise,
well, that's the point exactly. So I completely understand and agree that I think the regulations need to come up. Now the question is, who can imagine the type of regulations and how to write those type of regulations in order to make it fair at this stage?
I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error. They're going to be too strict at first, probably, the rules. But the people who wrote the original rules, so for example, the company I work for, my boss literally wrote some of the legislation in the Isle of Man 25 years ago. Those kind of people, they will do the base works, the legal basics, if you want. not the technical things. And then you need to bring in some technical specialists to say, look, this is the legal, playing field. Where do you slot in? So you basically lock a lawyer and a programmer into a room.
Well, I mean, I can understand that when somebody sits behind a table in the casino, physical casino, that, obviously if he uses a device, that can be stopped, at the table, etc. People can, walk up to him and say, don't use that, etc. Over the internet, it's impossible. So I just wonder how technically that could be possible in order to make it happen, to regulate it correctly. I think it's very difficult.
And I think what's also important is, I mean, we mentioned NFTs in there and the whole blockchain, and I'm well on record as not being a huge fan of blockchain. You, of course, are a big supporter, and we always clash on this, I know that. For me, 99% of all blockchain solutions are just not needed. There is 1% that is needed, and that's good. Harmen thinks 99% are needed, but...
Not 99%. I think a large part is needed, and I think that the blockchain developments are already going in the right direction, where it basically has to be forecast. That was like when the internet started. We had tons of websites that were like, and that was a dreamed up, fabrication of a fantasy. Would that be, right? But over time, you can see that, the better ones will survive. And I think that's the same with the blockchain. That's the same, let's say, with regards to NFTs. At the moment, we have so many, let's say, NFTs out there that, right now everybody is playing by trial and error, seeing what works.
And that's the thing, we need to, so someone actually asked a question in the app, is there an international standard for NFTs? And if you mean a regulatory standard, no, there isn't really.
Right.
There's this technical, ECR standards, the 3-4 different ones, but there is no DIN standard, there's no ISO 9001 for NFTs. There should be, and this comes in where, for example, fine, sales plug, Isle of Man license. If you get that, at least people, so NFTs in crypto has an image problem still. It continues, because there's too many rug pulls, too many scams. And at least if you are based in a proper jurisdiction and you have maybe a DBA, which is the Designated Business Act in the Isle of Man, that's more the fintech side, at least people who invest with you or play with you, they know that you're a real company, you have real owners, they are known, there's KYC on file, there's some sort of reassurance. Of course, if you have an Isle of Man gambling license, they know everything and your funds are safe. That's the highest level. And I think players, as operators, put in more and more of AI, or they add NFTs to casinos. In my previous projects that they were working on, you have a casino and then you have a marketplace for NFTs, and the NFTs do things in the casino. Players will want to know that that's fair, and that you're not going to rug pull them, and that it does what it says it does.
Well, I agree, but the one thing that's an advantage, let's say, for the gaming industry and for the people that are, let's say, either grey market or already in the regulated areas, is that at least they can reinforce that message, get the message out, and make sure that people understand. I think the biggest problem is still the educational side of,
Absolutely.
What exactly is there that people don't know. I think there is so much more that we don't know than we know, and the more we know, the more we actually, start to become nervous about it. So it's like, it's a very fine line to walk, to get people to do what you want them to do, which is to just have fun and play.
And we need to still work a lot on that credibility problem that the crypto space has, and the NFT and the blockchain space has. It's getting better, and the first sort of people are now, the first rug pulls and scammers are getting prosecuted, and it made my heart jump with joy when I saw that the influencers who promoted FTX are now being sued for a vast amount of money. That's beautiful, because that cleans that area up. There's too much bad stuff happening.
Well, let's put it this way. It's a trading game, right? At the moment, basically everybody is trying to make a fast buck, and, a lot of things that happen around, everybody says blockchain, but it's really the crypto. It's basically about the fact, how can I, do the market making, build up some value, and then, try to cash out at the right time and make sure that I make some money along the way.
And another thing I think we mentioned in there is the whole metaverse thing. I think there is some business case in it, probably not as big as Mr. Zuckerberg who bet his house on it. But who's going to be the first properly regulated metaverse casino? So players know that if they go in there, it's the same strict rules that, for example, you would find if you go into the real deal down here. People want to know it's the same rules, it's the same protections. And how does the metaverse casino protect themselves on the other way around? So who's going to be the first? And there's a lot of pioneering work coming up in the next few years, for sure. And there's going to be scandals, and there's going to be, some crisis things when the first AI scandal breaks. It's bound to happen.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I already see that, what you said. Let's go back to the sports book and the AI, predicting. I like the example that you chose. Option number one, you get better odds. Option number two, you get worse odds. Actually, there are many more options in the sense of basically saying...
Keep it simple, yeah.
Yeah, no, clear.
Well, what would you give that guy? So I know he's a recreational player, he loses
I'd be the type of guy that would give him better odds, because I'm really like, okay, if he continuously loses, then he's out of money, and then as a result, he's not going to play as much, right? I mean, I want people... When your adrenaline, works, and it works right, it basically means you go up and down, up and down, up and down, and that is when, people get hooked, right?
So
because
maybe we should use AI to balance the player experience.
Absolutely. That's really, well, we should use it. I mean, I think that's an inevitable use of AI, let's say. And I think that, what you will see is that suddenly when people start playing, it's like some people that, when you play a slot machine, just, for, let's say you in the audience that are lesser into slot machines, most of the people think that slot machines are very boring. But the actual reason why people play slot machines is because you get into a flow, okay? Ask, approximately 30 million Japanese why they like the pachinkos. It's because they get into a flow. They forget everything else that they are supposed to do or be about, or, what's on their mind. They want to get into that flow. Now, there are many people that have different ways of getting into the flow, no matter if it is you doing your exercise or, you start reading a book or whatever it might be. Getting into a flow is important for everybody in order to basically, take your mind off. AI can bring that flow, right up front to you and basically provide you with what you want.
And that's fascinating. If you think about it, you just gave me an idea for another product with that. That is so true. Imagine, because someone mentioned that before in one of the earlier sessions, that when you walk into a casino, they have facial recognition. And then it checks your socials, your background, and straight away when you walk in, the screen you walk past will show a personalized offer to you.
Right.
You could actually do this for slot machines. You could go one step further. So when you log into the casino, it knows it's you, and then it straight away checks, the AI goes, checks what you've done, checks where you've been, checks everything in your life right now, and presents you a custom-made, instantly created slot or game experience that's perfectly designed to get you into your flow.
Absolutely.
I mean, the potential of this is...
It's mind-boggling.
Amazing, yes.
It is, absolutely.
But the risks are also massive.
Well, that's the whole point, because again, it's fraudulent behavior. Oh my gosh, I mean, the more information you have on somebody, the more you can abuse it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, so there's protections on both sides, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
How do we protect bad people from basically rinsing you?
Well, I mean, inevitably that's going to happen, right? Go back to the poker game and basically say, okay, you have a poker game, it lasts a couple of hours, etc., and then suddenly you're like able to evaluate all your other players, etc., and now suddenly you take advantage of the situation. Quite easy.
So really the question is, this stuff is coming. Whoever comes up with it the first, whoever builds the first sort of AI slot that instantly creates, I really love that idea. Whoever gets a good handle on AI first is going to make a lot of money out of it, because you'll be the market leader.
Absolutely.
But the regulators need to catch up, and we are working on some of the the new regulations, and we're thinking ahead. And
but you do it in the Isle of Man, and the Isle of Man basically can say to its license holders, this is what you got to do, etc. But we all know that a lot of let's say those games that are out there, etc., are just not in the hands of just one regulator.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I'm trying to, for example, get provably fair Isle of Man approved, which is possible. And provably fair is used by all the crypto books, and it's okay. It's it is what it is. It's provably fair.
Yeah.
So this kind of it's open source, so anyone could use this RNG, stick it into whatever AI slot they create, and
Agreed.
You don't need any regulator. You don't need any testing house to create something that potentially can be played by millions of people. And that's the world we live in now. And you can do that from your bedroom. Mm-hmm. That's the world we're in, and that's the world from putting on my regulatory hat. I'm not with the regulator, I'm with a private company, but we work on our own legislation, and like I said, my boss wrote some of the legislation in the old days. That's what we now have to from our own accord, and that's what you should also start looking at if you're in the compliance space. You will know that your compliance department is the fastest growing department in your whole company, and nobody's happy about it, and it's nothing to do with the lovely people working in it. It's just regulation is everywhere. So this is not only...
Yeah, but we're going to get an overkill. I mean, AI should be the other way around. Exactly. AI and let's say, what can be done with NFTs, we could basically create an automated machine. So, for example, I could have, let's say I had a particular betting pattern. And let's say I wanted to bet $1,000 a month. And let's say I wanted to play X amount of games. What I then effectively could do is I could buy 1,000 NFTs. I could basically go to a particular game. I could then let it loose automatically. And at the end of the month, I know if I won or lost. Think of that one. Now, I satisfy myself because I feel like, I'm placing a bet. Most people gamble, right, because they're bored, right? So suddenly, I have something else to look forward to. I have something that's happening in the back of my mind that I could be lucky, I could not be lucky. I don't even have to spend the time on it. So, suddenly I can free up my time and I can, do whatever else I need to do. Meanwhile, knowing that, something is happening that could change my life, or at least that could influence my financial position.
And actually, I've just had an idea. I swear this wasn't pre-planned. How about, because the ones of you who are here, you're clearly interested in the topic, and we're also going to put the video, of course, on the site later, and articles and whatnot. Wouldn't it be a good idea if we created an industry think tank around AI, its uses and regulations and safeguards?
I think that's not a bad idea. I mean, in general, I think that regulators need massive support. I don't think there are any, good consultants
They will need
around.
our knowledge. I mean, it's
absolutely.
Because it's not everyone. For example, I started as a trader 20 years ago, so I know how a trader thinks. I know how a shrewd punter thinks. I know how a recreational punter thinks. So I can roughly sort of estimate how I would use an AI tool for each scenario. A lot of people have no idea about that.
Absolutely.
They don't even know where to start, especially regulators. Many of them are not from a operator background. Or an old school trader like we used to trade with a manual to best screen. That doesn't exist anymore. It's all feeds.
Yeah.
So maybe we should really, if you're interested, where you've got my contact details, Harmen is very easy to find on LinkedIn. Let's start a think tank where we can just dump ideas and basically work on this future together. Because we will have to. The regulators will need us. We will need to be careful because it's about sustainability of the industry.
Absolutely. If you don't count, let's say, countries, there are 197 supposedly, according to the UN. If you think about the number of licenses, I believe that IGT published, a couple of years ago that they had 263 licenses in different jurisdictions around the world. That basically means 263 different jurisdictions need to find regulators that know how to regulate this aspect. Now, good luck. I think that's going to take forever and many, many years. So. We're in the Philippines here, Parker is a very open-minded, organization. It'd be interesting to, get some of that feedback and figure out as to what their thinking is around this. But what we're trying to say here, it is coming, and it's coming fast. And really, nobody is prepared for it. And is it all positive? No. Can it be extremely negative? Yes. What will the ramifications be?
Yeah, and it's such a two-edged sword, right? The possibilities that this has, like I said, what creates instant machines, create perfect experiences, but also the risk of being absolutely destroyed by players who are now
better informed,
informed and able to access tools that were, if you thought a Betfair trading bot was your worst enemy 10 years ago, Jesus, are you in for a surprise?
Yeah.
And a very, very nasty wake up. So if this future tech does not feature yet on your product roadmap, on your regulatory roadmap, and on your risk roadmap, then it's high time you look at it because it's coming, and it's coming very, very fast.
Any questions? Anybody that wants to weigh in on this? Of course, Tony.
Of course. I'm Mr. NFT. Last year I tried to bring NFTs to the casino industry and hospitality business. It was impossible. They are the least receptive to new technology. So tell me, do you think this is ever going to happen?
Oh, for sure it's going to happen. For sure. Just imagine the situation where, let's say, in the near future, right now we still trust chips on the tables, right? But the question is, that's because we still trust, to a certain degree, the casinos that give us the chips. But imagine that, every chip into an online casino would suddenly become an NFT and would be traceable. It would become a very different ballgame. Now imagine that that NFT chip holds a number, and that number, is tied into another jackpot or another, prize payout or whatever. It is, as far as you can think, people have to come up with a concept and a game, and then it will start taking off. There's no doubt about it.
And I think so part of the reason why NFTs sometimes don't take off that much is there is this bad image attached to them now. thanks to all the rug pulls and things. And it's also maybe a little bit confusing to people. So part of it is how you design the experience, but part of it is also, I think, the terminology. So you may want to introduce NFTs to your casino, but not call it an NFT.
Totally
you just
agreed.
call it a part of the game, your own part of the game. Use different terminology that is in line with existing casino and gaming terminology.
Yeah,
that is,
absolutely.
keep the like Harmen very rightly said at the start, it's all about education, but keep that educational curve as low as possible.
Yeah.
People are not there to learn technical stuff. Okay, they don't want to know what an NFT is and how it works and which wallet I have to install. They're out. They just want to play their game.
I mean, it's like e-payment, right? I mean, we didn't used to pay, by, any automated means, etc., because we didn't trust it. Now with Apple Pay, WePay, Alipay, etc., especially in this part of the world, it is so much bigger, so fast. We're just in the starting blocks even for that. In the rest of the world, I can just imagine how this could, be concentrated around the gaming industry, and how the gaming industry could start using some, centralized mechanism, in order to trade. I mean, BetConstruct started now the fast token with fast tags, etc. They basically are taking the payments in from their operators under the fast token, so they have automatic liquidity and buy, sell opportunities, etc. And it, as a result, stays a bit more stable. I think it's just a starting point. I mean, the people are taking the initiatives. Now we have to see where it's going. I mean, Nick, I think you have some things to say that are quite interesting with regards to what your company is doing in this segment. I think that we haven't seen anything yet. The question is, how do we bring it, as you said, to the people in a very seamless, frictionless, easygoing way that we can all accept it?
People are in the casino to play their games, not to learn how to use NFTs and how to learn anything, right? They just want to play their games, and if there's something that makes their game more enjoyable or more rewarding or gives them another reason to come back, a USP, they're going to come back. And I think we're going to see the emergence of all this crypto, a lot of the garbage that was in the past and the questionable ones. We're going to see an emergence of the ones that survive and the new ones that come. They're going to be the better guys, the good guys, the ones that
we see
prove
better
themselves.
Regulations anyhow, right?
Yeah, that are trustworthier and more
absolutely.
stable platforms, and those are the guys you should align yourself to, and stay away from all the rug pulls and all that stuff, and don't just add NFTs because it's hip. Or don't add something because it's hip.
I think online gaming got a big boost when GLI, as the initiator, and then later on BMM and many others, started to certify the games online in a way that everybody said, okay, now we can trust it. But it wasn't just a trust for the players, because in all honesty, most of the players don't know if a game is certified or not. It was a trust towards the operators, that the operators knew that the game could be trusted, that as a result, if a jackpot was won, that yes, this would be one jackpot and not suddenly 10 jackpots, that as a result the operator would be out of business. So that level of regulation came out of the United States. A lot of this type of regulation comes out of a big market, whichever market that is. Like, for example, you were mentioning the central bank currency, which obviously is being led by China today. Let's see where this all is going to take us, but there is no doubt that we need those examples.
And I think above all, I mean, you can use regulation to improve trust. So you can get an Isle of Man license on your wall, which proves that the player funds are safe, that you are a legitimate company, that you adhere to AML and all the necessary rules to the highest degree. But to a player, it's how you act towards the player. And looking back at one of the old anonymous sports books in the Bitcoin space, which I still love that space. I remember back, I'm not going to mention the name of the sports book, but if you go on Bitcoin Talk, you'll find their thread. It's one of the oldest ones, one of the oldest Bitcoin sports books. They never had a license. They're completely black, dark, folks named a lot. They never had a license anywhere. Yet if you go into their thread on Bitcoin Talk, or someone says, oh, they're cheating me, I lost, they're cheating, you will see other players defending them, because they have been around for over a decade. They never cheated, they always pay out. If they do a mistake, they hold up their hands, because they know they live and die by the trust of their players. And all of us should act like that towards players. Value your players, earn their trust. And that's how you can then use because that's when they then will trust you with new technology. Because I know these guys, they're not going to screw me with this new feature.
So full circle around, we basically need to get the operators to understand AI before anybody else really understands it, in order then to educate their players, so that the players know that they can trust the operator, knowing that the operator understands the potentials of these new technologies.
And at the moment, I think we're in a situation where the players may know more about AI than the operators.
I think you're absolutely right. Any further questions?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much for interesting talk. So AI is part of the game, and we speak how we're going to regulate for the players not to use AI, not to abuse it. Even though doing research with AI, I don't think very much is abusing. But I want to be a punter for a second, and you gave a very scary example of how operators will use AI to give, in terms of sportsbook, and to abuse what they know and the information. Is there any regulations that will restrict somehow operators to use AI? Because I'm sure casinos will spend so much resources to make sure that players cannot use AI and cannot abuse them. But what about operators abusing the AI? Because it's not very fair to give the odds or to know what they're going to bet on.
Well,
Thank you.
I can probably do that because we do a lot of regulation. You mean in restricting what AI operators should use to keep it fair towards players? Yes, there is existing legislation, I would argue, even without having to put any AI amendments, and we're going to see AI amendments very soon, just as we saw in out-of-band regulation. The initial regulation in 2002, whatever, was written for fiat currency, then they made the CVC amendments for crypto, and I'm pretty sure at some point they and others will do an AI amendment to cover that. But even without that, yes, you already have certain safeguards as a player. You have certainly responsible gambling provisions that would grip here. If you as an operator do something that could be seen as socially irresponsible, that could be seen as encouraging irresponsible behavior by a player, that is covered under a myriad of regulations where the player can get at you. That's where I would look as a player if I feel cheated. But other than that, no, I mean...
Yeah, but you don't really know as a player, come on, it's so hidden. How would you know? I mean, that's the same as, you know, when we talk about trading.
And we're straight back in the gray area, right?
Yeah.
Which one of you have it in the terms that you use AI on your site, if you already do, or that you forbid the use of AI by players in your terms?
That's exactly what an operator should say. An operator should go and come clean and basically say to the players, this is where I use AI, this is how I use it and why I use it. That's what he should be educating his players if he wants to use it.
And that's why I was saying also earlier, we're going to see a number of scandals in this field. Absolutely, I'm sure. There will be rogue operators who will use it in a way that is socially irresponsible. And those will be operators with, I don't know, license or a minor license who have not much to lose, who just go, Wild West, I have this tool, let's make some money. And that's why we need to that's why we need to do this think tank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we all need to sit together and say, what should we do?
I already think through syndicates, etc. You know, operators can basically link themselves to a particular syndicate, and the syndicate is taking all the heat. And then later on, the operator can say, "Hey, sorry, I didn't know." Really? I think it's going to be a lot more complex than that.
Well, the other thing is also, we all know the house always has the edge, right? That's what we're being told. So, where do you set the line then? What's fair and what's not fair from an operator to use AI? Is it not fair if the AI analyzes my behavior and predicts I may win and cuts me? Is that unfair? Where do you draw the line, right? These are discussions that we need to start having.
Those regulations are very clear in the land-based casinos with regards to, for example, a slot machine. A slot machine has to have an RNG, and the RNG cannot be, towed with, etc. And, in many areas, they are completely controlled, by the gaming boards, etc. Right? So even if you wanted to change the chip or you wanted to change the game within the casino, etc., you have to, ask for approval, etc. In the land-based, very clearly defined. In the online,
very different. Especially sports, we would be very different online.
And the funny thing is, the online actually went the other way, because you would have expected that the online would actually have abused the situation and paid out less, right? If an average slot in a physical casino is around 95%, of course we know about stories that it's 92 or that it's 99, but let's say on average in the land-based area it's between 94 and 95% around the world. In the online, it actually went up much higher. So, despite the fact that they could go much lower, and they don't. Interestingly enough, self-regulatory already. Why? Because of the competition. Very clear. Market forces, etc.
And here's a free other use for AI that you as an operator can do that doesn't disadvantage players. I'm sure you're all aware between the differences between how European books tend to operate and how Asian books tend to operate, not just in volume of bets and limits, but if you win too much with a European book, then you're going to get cut and you're going to get closed. If you win a lot with an Asian book, chances are you will be used as an investment account, and they will follow you without you knowing it. They already have very clever scripts doing that. That if player X, we know Harmen is really, really good at tennis. Every time Harmen places a bet, my bot will run off and place his bet 10 times, with other bookmakers, because I know I'm going to win, because you're a good player. So I keep you. Even though I lose money on you, I make money because I lay your bet off with others. Now, if you throw AI into the mix, you can supercharge that.
Absolutely.
So you have another revenue stream as an operator that gives your player a great experience, because he can win as much as he wants. But your AI then makes sure you hit the competition.
The only thing that you need to do is get the best players.
And the best AI technicians. That's going to be the highest paid job in the future. AI engineers and programmers.
Totally agreed.
They're going to be the hottest ticket. So if that's what you study in computing, congratulations, you'll be rich.
Besides quantum computing. Yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon. You just mentioned a while ago that the whole blockchain, 99% of it is not needed. Or have I or is it the other way around? You mentioned it a while ago.
Yeah.
How is that so? Thank you.
How is what, sorry?
How is it so? I mean, why is that?
Yeah. So he's the one at 1% of the uses that is acceptable. I'm the one at 99.
Right.
Well, it's not exactly 99, it will be
why
less,
is
but
that
yeah.
so?
No, there are legitimate uses for blockchain tech. Absolutely. It has, good uses. And I've always been someone I'm a BTC maxi, and I'm a proud BTC maxi. Only recently, I like the fast token actually, that you mentioned. That is something that look, you can use blockchain and tech and tokens. What makes them live and die is if they have a commercial use. So if the bet construct guys, fee construct guys, if they use that and it has a commercial use, and I can mention a name because they're a sponsor, which is great, that's a commercial use. That is one of the 1%.
Right.
But there are other uses. So one other, just to balance things, that I've always been a BTC maxi. I've never looked at any others, but there's one recently that I like, and that is Radix, because I see, again, a commercial use in it, and the team behind it is good, and they're not out for a fast buck. It feels right. So yes, there is that 1%, but 99% I still think is right.
No, it's a lot more. I think you're talking about the tokens and not about the technology itself. I think most of the people that are working this technology are definitely going to get ahead. And I think the real focus of this technology is related to, let's say, the use cases of, for example, creating a ledger type, background and creating, let's say, the smart contracts wherever contracts are needed. I mean, in the future, I can imagine that we make deals with each other, even as friends. We have an app, and we can underwrite it with a smart contract so that at that moment when we make the deal, even if it is at $10 that I give you, because Frank, you need $10 right now, I'll give you $10, and we just sign a little contract. Now you know you owe me $10, and it will be forever in your wallet, showing that you owe me $10 until you pay it back. I see a lot of those uses will happen. I just think that, the UI experience is by far not there yet. I think, we have too many technical people in the field that are not led by, let's say, product-minded people. It is the real product managers that we need who are going to, make this change and make us all more familiar with it and get it accepted. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Actually, very good that you mentioned product there. There is one job that I think is in danger of AI, probably more than, well, there's a lot of jobs in danger of AI, of course, automation and whatnot. And that's casino managers online that decide what is the best games, what to put on the front page. These guys have if you speak to any, I'm saying that, but if you speak to any game operator, aggregator, they're going to say they have way too much power. There's these super highly paid casino managers who decide what's on your page, and they're like, oh, I know best. Well, no, you don't. The AI knows best. So all these high-paid casino managers, they're going to be unemployed very soon, I think.
Well, that's one of the first applications that's very useful, no doubt.
So that's another use for you as an operator. If you pay a lot for humans to optimize your website, stop it. Let a machine. It sounds cruel, okay, but.
Summarizing all of this, I think what we have to be aware of is that, it needs to be regulated. We need to figure out as an industry, what the potential upside, but also specifically the downsides are. We need to make sure that somehow we get a better thought process going. The think tank is a good idea. Thank you, Frank. And in general, I believe that we need to really be aware of, let's say, the impact that it will have overall, because I think we're just sleepwalking today in many areas with regards to what this actually means for the industry.
I fully agree. There's much to be done. So let's set up a think tank. Meet you all on LinkedIn, probably. We got our details. And let's work on this together.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.